but it really is a conversation around your table that will be facilitated by the pathway coordinators that introduce themselves. So feel free to introduce yourselves around your small tables, and your facilitators will help your conversations take off. And I will count down at 8:45 until 9 o'clock so we can keep track. And Yenny, who is our facilitator for the online group, is going to move from one group to another with her laptop. And so you will all be right in the recording, and they will be participating with your group as she moves around the room with that team. So any questions? There's water in the back if you need some water. All right. So Yenny, I am going to show the Padlet. I forgot one thing. I'm sorry. I have 1 minute because I'm good now. There's a Padlet. And so facilitators, please talk about your Padlet and how people can also upload and then use this in the future for their own best practices. All right, take it away. And although I forgot to get my phone. Oh, I forgot to turn off yet. Let me just minimize that screen.
So we're not getting any sound right now on Zoom land. I think, Yenny, you need to unmute your computer.
Can you guys hear us on the Zoom there? I know it's loud in here, but I don't know that everybody can hear. We're going to do our best. Okay.
Now we can. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So the first thing I said was my mantra is tomorrow's workforce is in the classroom today. We have to educate our workforce of tomorrow, and one way of doing so is through industry connections. And my love of CTE is because it's learn by doing. We know that. So today's conference facilitation questions are, I think what's nice is to learn from others, and that's the reason we designed this the way it is. So I have a couple of questions that I just wanted to kind of talk about. First is work-based learning. You're at the high school?
Yes, and I should have said this. I work in independent study families too.
Okie doke. All right.
Yeah.
Good. All right. And you're college. Yes. And so college has work-based learning opportunities as well. And so can we have a discussion on how do we facilitate work-based learning? How is, I mean, does a student walk into a classroom and say, I'm here to learn, but also can you help me get a work-based learning experience? Is it embedded in curriculum? Is it a requirement? Those are kind of the things we can talk about based around work-based learning. So I'll give an example. 20 years I worked at Linden High School, and we had a careers with education pathway. And within that pathway, it was when it was the old ROP. I'm going to date myself now for a minute.
Me too, I'm dating myself. I was in ROP.
So it was a 2-period class. So for the first part of the period, the students would do in-classroom work. We were proximity located right next to an elementary school. The entire class would walk down to the elementary school. They were assigned to different classrooms, and that was their community class learning. Okay, so best, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best cases. Other is fire science. Our fire science students actually took classes at the firehouse. Learn while do, all of that sort of thing. So what are your best practices for work-based learning?
So for us, for Title V, it's an entire health science pathway. So a lot of those programs will have your clinical partners. So instead they have the curriculum in the classroom, and then they go do the sales at hospitals, at radiologic technology centers, NTA. So it's really hands-on. So I think they get that experience going in there, knowing what they're going to expect when they walk into work after college, and having that, like, maybe this isn't for me, or I don't like needles, or whatever that might look like for them. But I think having that hands-on connection outside of the classroom is really important.
And how is that developed for the students? I mean, is that something you have to go out and facilitate? Is that part of the students?
Yeah, part of the program. So they are required to do a certain amount of units and a certain amount of hours in the classroom, and then a certain amount of clinical hours at the hospitals. So it's already embedded in the program, and they know that from the syllabus moving forward. So I think they know that expectation, and then if it's something that doesn't fit for them, then we find a different way to
facility is well. Excellent, excellent.
So the kind of the same thing with when I was a child development place teacher. So so we're in the study. So it's based on classes first 10 credits. The students were in a class, and so they had to get the basis of child development. So it's 4 classes. So the first 2 classes, the students would get jobs. Because we're independent study, we would have students who were 18 and were of age, and so they would go into assistant teaching positions. They still had to have college experience to actually, have their own classroom and stuff like that, but they could go in as assistants. And it was just really great. Like, it was just a great experience, but I've yet to be able to duplicate that in healthcare, trying to build a partnership, or another big one is construction.
Sometimes it's industry specific with regard to, and regional. I mean, for HEPA years ago didn't help us in the health industry. That just killed. I used to stick, we used to have, and that's another question down further, but we used to have upwards of 200 students out in the month of February job shadowing. And I would say a good 30% of them wanted health, and it was wonderful. They were all across San Joaquin County, again, learning what the real world would be like, but HIPAA just really hurt that for us personally. So, okay, well, thank you for those examples on work-based learning. I think that's wonderful. Advisory committees, that's a big one also, and I think director and join hand in hand interconnection, because as we know, legislative says that you have to have a higher number of industry partners on your advisory committee than educators. You also have to have your parents, special populations, CPSOs, students. So all of those, somebody from your workforce investment board. We all know that entire group rarely shows up at an advisory committee. I mean, in a perfect world, wouldn't that be wonderful? So I'll give you a best practice that we're working on in San Joaquin County. And we are coordinating with Delta College. And this is something that we're in the works of right now, to hold one advisory committee meeting for all of our area high schools, for all of the pathways, bringing together the specific pathways. So we know there's 15 pathways out there. And so the teachers at King Delta College that are aligned with the pathways at the high school. So the Pathway High School, the capstone teachers primarily would go, because we're all tapping into the same industry partners.
Yes, yes.
So if you've got 20 high schools in one region and 9 of them do healthcare, well, all 9 of those teachers are going out after the same help. So that's one thing we're trying to do in San Joaquin County, is bring everybody together. One film, feed them, get them together. We need large rooms, we understand that. And then we'll have, maybe we won't have students from every high school. Maybe we wouldn't have a counselor from every high school. In a perfect world, we would. Honestly, the WID person or the workforce investment person couldn't be at all of them, but there's a large staff at the WID, so we can bring out people, 15 people. We haven't gotten it off the ground yet, but that's our idea. So industry advisory committee meetings.
So I actually sit on I'm the chair of the Long Beach City College Adult and Child Development Board, advisory board, and that is how I started making connections. That is how I started. I was sitting with someone else from the community that came, and they were with, I think the school is, I can't remember the name, but she just next to me, and that gave us a whole nother partnership, took us into like a world, this school was like elitist, and it was great. Like it took us out of that neighborhood, which is really important to me, that students see another space, you know what I mean? So I know advisory boards are so important. However, how do you get past that? No, we don't. Like, how do you get past that? Because that was the first thing I thought about when I got this position. Like, we need an advisory board. We need to let people see what we're doing and then get input. But how do you do that when you know, like, your board is kind of like territorial? Like, we don't want anybody in here. We don't want anybody telling us what to do. They're not really on board. How do you navigate that?
For the students.
Yeah.
All for the students, making connections for life after high school, or moving on into, people run from me when they see me, frankly, because I'm going to ask them to either hire a student, serve on an advisory committee or something. So
and I've been a chair of that because nobody else will take it. I'm trying to get off, and I have relationships. Those are my professors when I was in school and everything. But there's students there. There's people that come from Long Beach State. So literally, I would know that was happening. Like, well, there's a grant for, and I need to figure out the wording to explain that is what it is for. And then like new classes coming up at the college, partnerships that they've gotten. And, it was just like look forward to those meetings just to find out. Like during the pandemic, they were still having meetings. Goodwill would always come and they computers for everybody.
wow.
Yeah, like
That's
fantastic.
Yeah,
and they had some left. We didn't have any more left. So it's like you could send students. It's just getting them to understand that. Yeah, getting them to understand that. Yeah.
So college level advisory.
We're in the kind of same boat because our pathway, we have multiple programs. And so when I first got there, everybody was siloed. So you had your own, these are my industry partners, these are mine.
Right.
So with Title V, it was a little bit more positive kind of, I don't know, response to that whole pathway so that everybody's coming together. And then multiple areas to each other's partnerships and industries. So that was a positive, but we're still struggling with the silos of getting like, oh, I'm talking to a business health, and then you guys can talk to them later. Instead of bringing everybody to the table. Right?
It's territorial.
Yeah, it is. It's always territorial. And it's like those conversations, stop siloing ourselves. We're one pathway and we have the same group of students going through biology and chemistry. We're always looking at the same one. So it's been a struggle, but we've tried last year with one of our grant objectives, we did have an industry partnership, and it's been like almost just like a yearly basis. It's one big meeting coming together and talking about what we can provide for students and workshops. So we're getting there, but it's been a struggle.
And I think that, again, I've been doing this for many, many years, and just getting the bodies at those advisory committee meetings, I mean, it is a struggle on its own, and then all of the requirements that have been laid on top of it for the different members. And as long as we can show good faith effort that we invited them, that we need them and their voice at the table, doing what they need to do to help propel our students to the next level, and that's the work that they're going to do.
I've never thought about having, because I know at Long Beach that there's students that are there, but I'm now my mind is like going, because I've been thinking about this advisory board, but what that would for that being on this advisory, what it exposes them to, and ownership, you know.
Multiple students could.
Yeah.
So I didn't talk about the split or anything, but let me just say that here's a QR code. This is us in San Joaquin County Office of Education. We've started the first in the state registered high school officer program. One of our is a teacher's assistant. Our kids are employed at the district, being paid and taking dual enrollment at the community college, getting their paraprofessional certificate.
Oh, that is awesome.
So I'm happy to share any more information. All my information is on the tablet, but I just wanted to give you guys that as well.
Oh, thank
So
you.
your contact's on here, on the scan when you scan it?
I hope so. I can give you this. I didn't even think about that part.
I'm sure I will contact you with.
Okay, let's rotate people. Let's rotate.
That's why.
So you can go
All these years.
All right, do you know any subject? We'll rotate one more time after this, so we'll get to 3 of the 4.
Yeah.
So, rotate however you like. I know.
Nice to meet both of you. That was fun.
I know.
It was good conversation. Her. Maybe at the very end, I'll give you the opportunity. Because we have a
Let me get out of the way. You can go with anybody, any subject. Just whatever interests you. Is it working okay?
I feel like I'm the online person right now. Okay, much better.
Okay, you may have to turn around so you can be seen. Okay, so we are talking about CE 11. One of the things that guides your CTE programming is the 11 system. You can find online. So it is if you apply for CTIG, this is something that has to be uploaded as a teacher. You guys don't have to do any of this, but this should inform your professional development in my opinion. And so I'll talk to you a little bit about how we can do that. And so you can take a peek of that. You don't ever have to fill it out. It's not your responsibility, but it is your responsibility to know what is it. This is a way. So I go through the whole thing because that would make us all crazy. But this should guide some of what you do. So I'm going to do number 2. So if you look at it, it's set up like this. Here are the expectations for anybody to do. Practices, rubric number 2, best practices, rubric number 3, best practices. You want to be on number 3 to get the most points as you fill this out. And then they give you some examples of what those things might be of evidence that you can use to fulfill. So for example, this is called the number 2 is the exploration, there, making my own words, exploration of all pathways. So how do you provide exploration for your students? So if you're a pathway coordinator, how are you helping your teachers know that, hey, here's some great opportunities? So it could be like career exploration, and the examples are right here. Well, they're all over the place, but I always look at the highest part of the rubric to have training program within their district. So do you guys know, like, what are those things in your areas?
Not formalized.
Do you have any informal anything?
Like there's really that's just north of us has a really cool like countywide career exploration program they do with a program called Youth Science, job speaker intervention, different platforms. They do like I wish we were doing what they were doing. One day I have dreams. Also random thought, I think that they would be able to hear you if we were to put the computer maybe closer because there's just a lot of
You want to put it on this
like,
side?
yeah.
Why don't you sit over here? Stare ready. So.
I feel like, you know, when you're like,
We're trying to make it less noisy for you guys online. Okay, so you said you don't have anything formalized. What about you guys? Actually, you know, I didn't even say who are you? Where are you from? Hi.
Hi. We just jumped right in.
Too many things. Here, let's do this so you can see
There
people.
we go.
All right, introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Rosemary Mitchell, Pathway Coordinator. And I brought along a non-pathway coordinator.
Yes. Janice Logan, I'm the project coordinator of Forest Health, but I do help with CTA recruitment, and I just started, so this will be good information.
And it's not, you know, even though we titled it Pathway Coordinators, I brought my dean because we work together. So good.
And I'm not in the high schools. I work a little bit in the high schools, but I'm a program manager for our Title V grant, which is our health science pathway.
Okay,
So
very good.
it is, I'm brand new to this, so this is good.
Well, welcome. That's why we're doing this, right? The brand new people or the seasoned people. All right. We're talking about here, let's not, well, you be in charge of that. I'm gonna stop. Formalized career technical education programs of any kind. You said, maybe not so many.
I was typing career exploration.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Right. I was like, you have
I might have said that, but I meant exploration. How about you? Anything that you're doing?
Yeah, so we have a whole CTE team, and they do a lot of exploration and but part of Health Science Pathway would do multiple workshops per program, so they get an idea of what they might be walking into and what the industry will look like when they get out of DC. But I think we've done a pretty good job with Title V
V to get that kind of well-rounded and not siloing ourselves with the exploration of an entire pathway.
So do you do like an overarching kind of career exploration curriculum?
Not necessarily curriculum, but we bring in all of our experts from Title V, so each expert in our field of the programs, and do workshops that explore that career specifically, and then we do that throughout the semester. So those students that are interested.
Explain Title V, just so that everybody understands.
Yeah, so Title V is a $3 million federal grant that we got to support our health science pathway with recruitment, enrollments, retention, and completion. So.
Great. And Joanne or Sarah, if you guys want to do anything in the chat, feel free to join in. We'll be happy to hear about any kind of career exploration programs that you guys have online. San Mateo's also wanting to pilot middle school career exploration models focused on environmental, sustainable careers and the green economy modules. Are you using Paxton Patterson? Are you considering Paxton Patterson, Sarah? Sorry, I know you have to
We have
type.
a couple middle schools that.
And do you use a particular curriculum? Paxton Patterson. I know a lot of middle schools.
Like
Oh, you're writing it. You might check in with Paxton Patterson. They have some pretty amazing stuff. Look at you though. She shared her Google on the written. Thank you. That's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's
We
very
should
good.
add that to the Padlet.
Yes, add it to the Padlet. Smart. Look at you guys. We're going to use this for the rest of our lives, this Padlet, for sure. Okay, and then another thing on the exemplary practice of number 2 on the CTE high quality evaluation is students have an individualized 4-year plan. And I think that's really difficult for a lot of people. 4-year plans. I was a teacher of CTE, and I think that it's a struggle. And so I'm curious, do you guys have anything like any planning or 4-year plans or even a shorter 4-year plan?
Most of our schools do like the 4-year planning areas and everything, but I don't know that it's like, I don't know how good of a job they do with integrating our CT pathways, or if that feels a little bit more like an afterthought at this point, but.
Do they do like some kind of career exploration and then into Aries? Do you know? Or? No.
Yeah. But I also cover many different school districts, so it looks a little different there.
How many schools do you have? Like
probably like, I don't know, because of how many charters.
Yeah.
We have 10 comprehensive high school districts with like 13 schools and then a bunch of.
We're buried. I don't know how many do you have?
I'm new to the Bakersfield area, so I can't tell you. It's a little bit stressful.
Because even in our own region, we're varied. Like some of us have 20, some of us have 40, some have a few. So it's very interesting how varied it is. And that's something that I think they're looking at. 4-year plans at your school, do you have anything that you get to do?
I guess the one thing we have, at least at the college, is Program Mapper, which maps out your 2 years on campus. And then we do have specialized educational advisors for Title V that can help with that planning as the next step of the 4-year program. So not so much in the high schools that I'm in, but so I don't know that area.
In our area, we used the round 1 of the K12 Strong Workforce, and we hired career navigators, and the career navigators took care of basically CTE planning for all CTE students at each comprehensive high school. And so we did a summer program as well with the college to do a dual enrollment class. And so we hired probably 20 different people, and the district saw such value in them, they actually hired them on themselves for sustainability. And so to me, that was really a great use of K12 Strong Workforce, and to see the schools take them on, it showed the value.
That's what Siskiyou County just doing the youth science exploration stuff.
Oh, good.
With their K12.
Very good. And so if I'm happy to always share, I actually do a presentation with Patrick on that program, but we also share the grant that we wrote. So if you ever have any desire, somebody that has a desire to write a grant like that, we're happy to share that grant. So, all right, let's move on to another question. Are you familiar with student clubs? So on number 3B, It talks about student leadership development and how it should be embedded into a career pathway into the teaching or learning. One of the big ways that it shows you is that student leadership is embedded through the 6 recognized CTSOs. You guys all know what those are. They're really just it's a student organization, California Technical Student Organizations. Making sure I don't miss anything on the chat. We're all good. All right. So the student organizations are like FBLA, Business America, or Skills USA America, HOSA for the health occupational. So there's a lot of different clubs that kind of lead into, have you guys heard of Occupational Olympics? Occupational Olympics or competitions. All of these students who are in these clubs can go participate in local and statewide competitions and even nationwide competitions. And so one of the cool things about a CTSO is that as a teacher, you can create this leadership piece within your classroom by having this club as part of your classroom work. And so when I taught medical careers, that was something that I had a HOSA club, and we had officers, and you do the whole regular thing like you would with the, all the different pieces and parts of running a club, like any club in a high school. But then you also prepare for competitions, and the competitions are always related to whatever career pathway they're in. So you guys heard of those things, or do you know anything about that?
I have a question for any of the pathways in like the education sector. Is there a CTSO
for getting into the teacher education, paraeducation, that kind of thing? Yeah. I do not think so. There are 6 recognized ones, and I believe there's not anything for teaching. Any experience there? Okay, what about you guys online? Any experience with clubs or student organizations, or, and it's okay if you don't. All right. Okay, and then the other thing is on 3B, what? Oh, FBLA. Joanne has FBLA. Thank you, Joanne. Future Business Leaders of America, which is like if you have entrepreneurial courses, that is a great, FBLA is a great thing to have, and they have great competitions. They give out awards, all sorts of things. So FFA does have that, but it really falls under ag. And yeah, they have competitions, and so yes, it's recognized because it's national, the whole 9 yards. But FFA is always CTE, but it's also FFA. Ag it really is exactly what we want all of our career pathways to look like. It is a beautiful, beautiful model. And so, yes, that would be great. All right. Let's see how much time we have. I'm trying to keep myself on track here. I think we got 1.5 minutes. All right, in the last 1.5 minutes, student competitions, we talked a little bit about, so we'll skip that one. What's the last one I have here? Oh, job shadowing for teachers. So in your industry, number 9B talks about dedicating resources from the district, which could include K12 Strong Workforce, to provide opportunity for your teachers and your students to kind of have job shadowing. And so we have a program in Stanislaus County that's called Stanislaus Partners in Education with Business. And they provide 40 hours of paid for teachers. And so I don't know if you guys have an organization. And working out like that in your areas? Does that sound familiar? All right, you've got to get out of it. And feel free to add to the Padlet if you have anything you want.
I know that, like, The one thing that you want.
Okay, we'll be picking another table to go to. Just 1 second. Okay, Joanne, do you want to go to the K curriculum CT model standards? Or the other option is improve linkages and alignment of K12 postsecondary and online. All right, can you guys hear us? Yes.
Hey, Sarah.
Okay. Hi, Sarah. Want to introduce yourself? Feeling better?
Hi, everybody. Start the timer. I'm Chris Morris, the Pathway Coordinator for the Peralta region in the East Bay.
And I'm Kenya Powell. I'm your host today. I'm the K12 Pathway Coordinator for the Yuba Community College District.
Bill Rowe, I'm the Pathway Coordinator for Redwoods Community College District in North County.
I do. Yep, I'm superintendent. My other hat is is the CCR coordinator, program principalist for Yolo County. Yeah. My feet. 2 different
In 2 different counties.
In 2 different, well, at least they're combined though, because Yolo is part of my K12 counties. I have 5 counties under Yolo, so I have Colusa, Sutter, Yolo, Yuba, and Lake County. So. Okay, and then we have Joanne. She says, hello everyone. I'm from the Santa Monica CCD K12 coordinator. We have Sarah grew up, she said, right by college. Oh, she says that. Maybe if I get it, you know, if I put it up there, maybe right by you. Sure. Hopefully she does get it.
Oh, they can't hear. Is that better? Yes. Okay. And I will, oh God, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to read that chat though. But I will be honest with you. I will try to manage the chat and see if it's moving. Okay, do you want to sit over here? Otherwise, I will be honest with you. I'm terrible with that tiny little writing. I never see it. Okay, so we'll get started really quickly. So today we're going to talk about the alignment standards. It is one of our K12 measures, objectives. Although as a K12 program coordinator, you do not have any real authority to make sure the teachers are doing this. But what you can do is support your district in nudging their teachers to make sure that they are aligning their lessons to standards. Okay. So you can each have one of these if you would like. I don't know if you already have one. You want one? So these are the model curriculums for CTE. They were developed in about 2014
They have not been updated since then. They are the same ones. I believe the only one that is in maybe updating stage is the arts, media, and entertainment standards. They are actively working on those right now to change those standards. All right. So when you're looking at the standards, they kind of go, you know, the peer kind of way, and I'm sorry that you guys can't see this online. So the first, I know I probably shouldn't see that. No, it's kind of blurry. So when you're looking at the standards, the first tier of standards are the career ready practice standards, right? So the career ready practice standards are the standards that are for any discipline, right? So they can go over any industry sector, they can go over math, over English. They're really just the basics of career readiness for any core discipline or any CTE pathway. Okay. Then you move into the industry sector anchors. I do not sure. This is on the Padlet. It should be on the Padlet already. Then you move into the industry sector anchors, which those are the standards for any industry sector in CTE. So all of the 15 industry sectors, the industry sector standards are all 15 industry sectors and can be implemented within any industry sector. The pathway standards are specific to each industry. So transportation has their own standards. ECE has their own standards. Health has standards. Then underneath each one of those, you have the sub pathway standards, right? So in ag, even though you have the overarching standards for all of ag, horticulture has their own standards. AgMech has their own standards. Very, very different. Right? So what you do in horticulture is extremely different than what you're doing in ag mechanics. So, but there are some that are very much alike. So, which is one of the reasons, like AMEs, that's why they're changing their standards. Yes, because really the AME standards across the board, no matter what pathway it was, they were kind of written all the same. But we know they're very different, right? So if you're in graphic arts, very different than the IT kind of portion of that, right? Or the programming part of that, but it still falls under AME. So, or the gaming part of that is very different. So they're trying to really separate those out now because they kind of don't make any sense the way they're written now. So the biggest thing with the standards is your teacher should be falling in between these two, the industry specific and the pathway standards. So when they're looking at their courses, they should either be aligning their lessons to the pathway standards or aligning their lesson to an industry specific standard, right? Their sub pathway standard, right? So standards are not course outlines. So anytime you ask a teacher for a course outline, it should not be a list of standards ever. And so your standard is not a course outline. Not every standard needs to be covered. That's impossible. Just like in English, they don't cover every single standard that's an English standard. You couldn't do that, right? So they need to pick and choose with the activities and the lessons and the objective of the lessons that they're trying to teach students, right? And then match those standards up. Do you have any questions? Or do you have anything online? Just making sure.
What I'll put in the Padlet quickly is a tool we developed with Oakland. It was a standards mapping tool.
Nice. Yes.
And so that way, all the teachers in all the courses were able to kind of map all their standards. They can actually see visually which standards are covered in which courses, which standards are covered multiple times, and then be able to get a broad picture. And then you had mentioned that they haven't been updated. So working with industry and saying, and they're determining, yeah, we don't, so they can find those out and make some notes in their outlets and their search mapping to know why we don't do that anymore, because we don't do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Nice, yes, I will add that
Yeah,
to the link. So when you're writing or you're using the standards, some things that they need to also take into consider is if they are writing their course for a UC designation, UC A through G designation, because you have to submit that course to UC Doris, just an A through G designation. Also, if you're looking at articulating that course or you're doing dual enrollment, that's another thing to look at when you're writing your course and when you're choosing your standards. If you're doing dual enrollment, if you're doing articulation, you obviously need to be working with the community college to make sure that you're meeting what they need, but that your class is still meeting the standards that they need for K-12. And then this is just an example of a course outline, what it could look like. And SCOE, Sacramento County Office of Education, they also have a course outline that's online that teachers can use. You can use it anywhere across the state, they don't care. And it was a system they developed years ago when we had CCPT funding, which was the first iteration of CTEC funding. And when they had that funding, they created a course outline tool. The link for this is on Padlet too, so this will be able to. Okay, perfect, thank you. That tool is still very useful. It's a great one to use with teachers if they do not already have set tool in their district of what they're supposed to be using, and always ask the teachers if they have asked. Does your school district have a course submission process? Because you don't want them to do it online on another way, and then that's not how their district takes their courses or doesn't have the information on it that their district wants. So always make sure that their district, if they do have a course submission process, that the chair knows what the process is, and then you can help them through it. But this one is a good one, and then we'll also add your link too, because you said anyone can use it.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Sarah said, awesome, thanks for the resource, Chris.
So this is just kind of a checklist when you're working with a teacher of how to help them do a curriculum implementation and how to write their course outline. It's just kind of what to ask, what to do. And I, as a K12 coordinator, this is directing them to implement standards into their course without getting into their weeds and being, too much into their system and taking over and saying things that you probably shouldn't say. That's what is, and it'll also be the Padlet. Any questions? Discussions?
No, I'm gonna email you later for that tool.
I mean, but you already, Bill used to be a teacher.
You never stop being a teacher.
I know. Well, I mean, you know what I mean. So you already know a lot about how they implement the standards and what to talk to teachers about. So then, do you find in your district that a lot of them are still doing the standards, or do you have pushback? Because a lot of times too, if you have teachers who've been teachers before the standards were implemented, there's still a lot of pushback from those old ROP teachers that are like, I don't really have to do that. I've been teaching for 20 years. I never did these before. Why do I still have to do them?
No, I haven't found a lot of pushback. there are teachers who are retiring that maybe
that are doing their own
could be, so, yes, they're exactly doing their own thing. These tools are fantastic because we have LEAs that are implementing new pathways and changing, like, okay, so we're not going to do construction, wood shop anymore. We're going to do construction technology. And so these are really important to do for to help them figure out how they're going to do it. And I always want to encourage any CT teachers to get their courses A through G.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the most important thing, because you need to offer your students more than just.
And they can tick boxes off and two birds with one stone. They get some different credits, but for their and then and there's nothing that says you can. Because I was articulated and A through G, so that's not that difficult to do. And
it's just all in the plan.
You can go to the UC Doorway site and find the course that's already approved and copy and paste. Change your high school name.
Or take that course and tweak it the way you need it, you know what I mean, and submit it. And you know that it's already been submitted, so you know that your chances of it getting approved are much higher.
Okay, in the chat, it says if anyone has useful tools, please feel free to add them to Padlet. We are hoping that this is a living tool for PCs across the state to use, and then also please feel free to share the Padlet link with anyone who might find it useful.
Is that from Sarah?
Thank you, Sarah.
Sarah created our Padlet. Really is the data person.
She is. One-stop shop.
Yeah, we got we were like at one meeting and she had like already finished the Padlet before we finished the meeting. It was like, Sarah's like, okay, Deb was like, maybe we should do a Padlet. And the next thing we was like, okay, nice.
Yes, thank you, Sarah.
So how about in Oakland? Are you just following their standards? Are they, do you get any pushback on them? Do they?
Well, I was sharing with the year that we, Oakland had an FPM, Federal Program Monitoring, last year. Super fun. Well, a lot of good came out of it, and we will affirm some really good practices that they were doing, and then identified some of those spaces where they needed it. And it was a good push. It wasn't just, it wasn't me or the director or the quote unquote district saying you have to do this, but this is what we need to do. And so we had a series of PD last summer on course outlines, and this summer we're following up with student leadership and CTSOs, and so far so good.
Yeah, it is always nice when the county or CDE come in and tell your teachers the things that you've been trying to tell them forever. Especially, I understand. I was the coordinator for a district for a long time. So an FPM can be enlightening and eye-opening, and you can use it to your advantage, right? Because again, it's not you telling them the same thing over and over again. It really is, the state coming in and saying, no, this is how things are supposed to be. It's not just your district. This is how we set it up for the state. So that's nice.
Yeah, and adding also that they were doing some really, really outstanding things in their CT programs and leap learning, and so having CD highlight a lot of those practices wasn't all bad.
Yeah.
All right, we have Sarah Watanabe on the computer on Zoom. You have another session, but not until 10. So if you're interested, Sarah said she would be willing to share some LMI information with you if you'd like to stay and listen for a few minutes. And if you have somewhere to go or you need to take care of your own business, then you're welcome to scoot out. But Sarah, you have access to share your screen if you'd like to do that, and get rid of my chat here. Oh, well, yes, we'll just a minute. We're doing a presentation, Sarah. All right.
just like to say thank you so much for presenting today and sharing your knowledge with us all. Remember that if you go to the main session today, they might be throwing a few of these out for the rest of us.
Thank you. Socks.
Thank you.
Who doesn't love a good pair of socks?
Good comfy socks.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
People are interested. Just to quickly share, we have some resources.
Can you turn it on here to put it back on mine?
And now I can't hear the room. Can everyone hear me? All right, are people able to hear me? Hello? Let's try again. Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, fantastic. So just a couple LMI resources for people on the Padlet. The first one is something that the Bay Area team put together. And we basically took a bunch of the source for data out there and made it on a sortable sheet with what we've been using it for and descriptions of what it is, and sort by data category, sort by segment of the population that you want to look for. So it's a great way to get some quick data. I also put an example of how I've been using my data with pivot tables. So we have things like bubble charts, which can show the number of job openings, the change over the next 5 years, and the median earnings for all of the different sectors. And then also we have a through line chart that I was able to create looking at K12 versus community college versus annual job openings. This is a great, just quickly show districts where some of these gaps might be when they're looking to start a new pathway or vamp a pathway. So if you're interested in geeking out data with me, feel free. Email is in the Padlet. I need to nerd out with anyone at any time.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, well, the Padlet will be available forever. I think it's going to live into infamy. Sarah created it for us, and so if you want to continue to add things there, feel free. Also, we will you all have our email in Attendify, so if you have any questions based on anything you heard today from the people that shared information, feel free to get a hold of us in that way. And we really appreciate you being here today. So have a great rest of your conference. All right, thank you. Thank you, Sarah.